We are recording this, and we will post the recording of this informational night. So if you know someone who was unable to make it, or if your technology crashes on you in the middle, no worries. We will make sure to get that posted as soon as possible for you. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our informational night for the Camas Math Science Technology Magnet Program for 9th through 12th graders. We're going to start with some introductions of the staff that are here on the webinar with us. Mr. Morris, Tom Morris, is our program principal, as well as the principal at Camas High School. I am Brianna Abraham. I teach principles of technology to the freshmen, AP biology to the sophomores. I work with the juniors as they seek internships, and I work with the seniors as they finish up their internships. Alan Bohack teaches all levels of math. Sam Green teaches English to our sophomores. He also runs the blog, the website, takes care of all of the ins and outs of our daily life with Magnet. Jeannie Jarvis teaches our 9th grade English class. So she helps with the research in that year. And Jennifer Roberts teaches the freshmen in AP Environmental Science, and also is a huge part of helping coordinate our research projects that they do throughout the course of their career at CHS. And Tina Levy is our counselor who oversees everything else with our students and does an amazing job of keeping them working and functioning in a healthy way. So we couldn't do this without all of the staff involved.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight and learning a little bit about our program. We're excited to have you here and to do our first webinar version of this, which is kind of a new game for us, so bear with us. On the next slide, I'm going to share with you, there's going to be a whole bunch of words that are the characteristics and the traits that we're looking for in our students. We were very often asked, what does a typical MST student look like for the Magnet program? And this will begin our discussion on that. So why don't you take a second when I put the slide up and just look through some of those words that are highlighted so you can get a sense of the characteristics and traits that we're looking at in our students, and then I'll explain those a little bit more deeply. As I mentioned, lots of words on this slide, but I'm asking you to focus in on the bolded, highlighted words. So obviously, since we are a STEM-based program, our students should have an interest and probably an aptitude in a STEM-based course of study. It doesn't need to be the only thing they're interested in. In fact, that's the point I'm going to try to make tonight, that we have a really diverse set of students who have all sorts of interests. Students should have a desire to learn about the research process. We teach students starting in the freshman year and the sophomore year how to work on a team to learn how to design a good project and write up their findings and present their findings. And of course, we are looking for students who are committed to acting ethically in their research and in all aspects of their academic life and personal lives, hopefully too, as well. Moving on, another thing that we really like to underscore and highlight for our characteristics is the ability and the desire for students to want to work on a team. We do a lot of team-based work in the freshman and the sophomore years in particular, and as you know, life is a team-based sport, so it's one of those soft skills that we really focus on in our program. And then, of course, a general interest in refining skills and having a growth mindset about your ability to present and communicate clearly and speak thoughtfully and clearly about your work. And finally, we are really looking for kids who have an interest in developing their ability to persevere and display grit in the face of complex problems. That's one of the soft skills that we really focus on as it relates to not shutting down when we get a complex problem and working with a team and finding a way through rather than out of. And so when somebody asks, what does the typical MST student look like? There is no single typical right answer or look for a student in our program. We have students who have all sorts of interests. Here's a picture of some of the knowledge bowlers from our first class ever back in the year 2007, winning the state championship in Knowledge Bowl. We have varsity athletes in almost all of the sports in our program at one time or another. We have people dedicated to the academia almost completely and solely Here's Reese Pathak, who did an internship that allowed him to publish, get a co-author publishing credit in the Journal of Immunology as a high school student based off of the work he had done at the OHSU over a multi-year internship. We have students who are keeping up their music chops and participating in jazz band and concert band and marching band. We have, as I mentioned, all sorts of varsity athletes. Here is one of our varsity soccer players from a few years back. And of course, another one of Rio doing her softball varsity work in her senior year. But we really just have a diverse set of interests and student types that come to our program. Megal Sheth here worked in another multi-year internship at WSU Vancouver and worked in the Coffin Lab and also got a co-author credit in a paper that she ended up getting credited on in her senior year. Here's Hope, who just came back and worked with us during our December mini symposium, where she acted as a panelist, helping out students to learn about their project work and get better at their presentation skills. And of course, we have a lot of kids who are involved in the FIRST Robotics team and even some kids involved in theater. And so when somebody asks, what does the typical MST student look like? There is no single right answer for this. We are a diverse group of people in this program, and we honor all the diversity that kids bring to the table in terms of their interests. And so Mrs. Abraham is going to talk to you a little bit about the schedule and what a typical day might look like for a student in the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th grade years. Mrs. Abraham?
Thank you, Mr. Green. Also wanted to remind you, we do have the chat turned off, but the question and answer feature turned on. So as we are speaking, if you have a question that you would like answered, we have the rest of the staff waiting to type an answer, or we can always, of course, answer it live if we're in the process of that. So just wanted to remind you to use that if you would like. This is what a typical 9th grade schedule would look like. Now, this is not in necessarily class order, in period order. They're not necessarily going to go to AP Environmental Science first period when they come to school, but they will be getting these classes in their schedule. The bolded classes are the ones where it is only MST Magnet students in that class. So they'll move through 3 periods, the AP Environmental Science, the Honors English 9, and the Principles of Technology classes together as one full cohort. And we'll focus on, specifically in Principles of Technology, gelling them as a group, doing some team building work, focusing on those 21st century skills that Mr. Green talked about, those soft skills, communication, collaboration, creativity, technology. And then it's also the basis for the research work that we expect all freshmen and sophomores to do a group research project based on their interest level. And we guide them through that process their freshman year in Principles of Technology and Honors English. And then also in their sophomore year in AP Biology, a little bit yet less, but also in their Honors English 10. And so those are the only 2 classes that they are cohorted in their sophomore year. Of course, you'll notice the math is whatever their next in sequence would be. Their PE, social studies, you'll see the flow there. And of course, there's room for electives as, especially as they get older in grades, there'll be more room for those. That MST Research 10 is where we spend more time focusing on the project in their sophomore year. It's not actually a class where I meet with the students together during a period at school, but it is an extra credit class that they'll get throughout the year. And there's grades that they get for their project work go into the MST Research 10. But I see them in AP Biology, and that's where I work with them. And then Mr. Green works with them in their English 10 to give them a little bit more support their sophomore year. Their junior year, you'll notice the only bolded class is MST Research 11. And actually, this class is not a period during school. I meet with the juniors really one-on-one. We have an informational night about internship process, and then I meet with them one-on-one throughout the year to guide them through writing their cover letter and their resume, seeking out mentors for their internship, and how to go about doing that and finding what they really want to do. But once they get to their junior year, all the courses are going to be mixed with all the other students at CHS. There's not going to be a single cohorted class for them, but they can take whatever is next in their sequence, and of course those electives built in. And then looking at the senior year, it's very similar. There again is no cohorted class period at the senior level, but I work with the seniors in an MST Research 12 credited class to finish up their internship, write their research paper, finish their poster, and then they will present it twice for us. Once to the school board members in a poster fair in December, and then another time in May at our symposium where we have all of our students who have conducted research for the year present to the staff and community members and family members. So we have our 9th, 10th, and 12th graders all present their year-long research at the May Symposium, which we would love to invite you to this year. It's a great way to get a view of what things will be like in the Magnet program, and we'll see if it's virtual or if it's in person, but we'll be sending out more information about that later on. So that's the schedule there. And then program characteristics, just again, an overview. Mr. Green talked about the characteristics of our students. Let's talk about the characteristics of the Math Science Technology program itself. That project study that I was talking about, and you saw all 4 years in the schedule, is really the big defining characteristic of our program. We want to encourage students and train our students to be creative and curious about the world around them, to investigate it on their own and develop those research skills as a basis, a foundation for what they do the rest of their life. So their inquiry-based project study, they'll have a group. There's freshman and sophomore years, and then their senior year, it's that individual internship research project that it culminates in as that capstone project for us. We use a lot of technology. We are STEM, right? So there's science, technology, engineering, and math focus. And so we try to use that throughout the 4 years. There's video projects and website projects and podcasts done in English. In the Principles of Technology class, we focus on coding and web design or app design. We do a bunch of different things along that, along with some physics design challenges that take the engineering and the iterative process and really figure out how to do that. So we like to try and use technology as much as possible. And then of course, in our science classes, we try to use the technology that's there. We like to say we have some really strong student teacher cohorts. Noticed on the introduction page, we have 5 teachers, I can't even remember now, 5 teachers and a dedicated counselor that we meet weekly as the staff to talk about what are our plans, what are our students doing, how are they interacting with each other and with the content and the curriculum. And then we also work closely with them in their research and doing activities, building the team together so that it feels like a family, and also focusing on the research and what we want our students to learn before they leave Camas High School. So it's a really neat program with a family atmosphere. We also have encouraged, and we're doing better at this actually as time goes on. We have a couple of our junior and senior students this year mentoring, quote unquote, our freshman groups that are doing some research projects because they've done those research projects in the past, something similar. And so they have, through their 3 or 4 years in the program, gained some expertise and are able to pass that on to our underclassmen, which is really exciting. We also do a lot of social events where, it's all the 9th through 12th grade students together. And so there's a large opportunity for all of our students to learn from each other and learn with each other, which is exciting. And so that goes into our social and community. That's a picture before COVID, we would do a yearly all-nighter at the school, and we would hang out and eat and play games and talk about nonsense at 3 o'clock in the morning. We also, every other year, will take a trip to Ashland for the Shakespeare Festival, get to see a couple plays, go through a workshop, and that's in the fall. That's a real bonding experience, especially for the freshmen that go, because it's the first opportunity. It's right in October usually. It's the first opportunity to gel and really see what experiences can be like as a full group, 9th through 12th grade. And then there's other events we do. We do a volunteer service opportunity when we can in the spring and try to keep things going. Our ASB officers this year have tried to plan and have been successful at planning some online gaming nights or movie nights, even with COVID limitations over Zoom or Discord, where our students have been able to interact and try to keep those social relationships going, even during some isolation periods, which has been really exciting and I want to encouraging as a staff member to see them taking the role and trying to keep those organized. So moving into how do I apply? So the admissions prerequisites, 8th grade students, of course, we only accept 9th through 12th grade, right? So we accept him as a 9th grader coming in. There will be, the application is going to be on the website, which Mr. Green will take over and show you the website. And then, oh, that's on the next slide, right? So keep going on. So you'll submit the application and that's on the website. Mr. Green will show you. There's going to be a questionnaire on the application that you'll complete. You'll ask for 3 teacher recommendations, and then you can have a 4th if you would like. In the past, we have asked for 8th grade teacher recommendations from math, science, and English. And I do believe this year, due to COVID and the likelihood or the possibility that your 8th grade teachers may not feel like they truly know you, only having maybe met you through a computer screen, we are open to having 7th grade teachers write those recommendations for you as well. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
Mrs. Abraham, yes, I've spoken to some of the middle school staff and they are shifting some students to balance out the cohorts as they move into their hybrid schedule. And so if you have a brand new teacher that you haven't had for the whole year, then you need to do the person that has been your core teacher for the primary part of the year, the bulk of the year, or as Mrs. Abraham said, you can go back, I think, to the previous teachers and get their recommendation.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Green. There is an entrance exam and an on-demand writing prompt, which will all be held on the same day. And we'll look at the date for that on the next slide. But let me just try and talk a little bit about that. It's a norm-based exam that we've taken from national programs similar to ours. It has math. It has a reading comprehension part. It has, and then the on-demand writing prompt as well. So an English component and a math component to that. And I think Mr. Green knows a little bit, it can speak to that a little bit better on the next slide when we go through the website and looking at that. So real quick, important dates tonight, February 25th. You're here.
Just for a second.
Of course.
Ms. Abraham, I'll just throw in some stuff because there were some questions about testing in there, and I have a few more specifics in there about that that I can share before I have to run. And I'm just letting everyone know I have to run here early to go watch my daughter play soccer. But yeah, there's 3 parts to the test when they're here. At CHS, there's a verbal section, which is about 70 questions. It goes through word meaning, logical reasoning, analogies, and then there's some reading comprehension that goes along with that. And then there's a math test. There's 50 questions in the math exam. It covers a wide range of topic. I think I could best describe it as it's almost more of a logical test than anything. It's not like really heavy in algebra or really heavy in geometry. It's really heavy in thinking. Trying to think through these problems and see what the answers are. There are some straightforward problems, but there's also some where students have to be a little creative and do some problem solving. And then an on-demand writing prompt at the end. We develop some writing prompts. We'll give students about 45 minutes to create a draft and then their final essay, and then that would complete it. So there's 3 parts to that. So thank you for letting me jump in and interrupt.
Mr. Morris, a parent asked, the writing part, is that written or is it typed?
That's a great question. Well, it's not, yeah, it's a great question. In the past, we've always done handwritten on that one. So we provide scratch paper and such. But we may change that this year, but I'll let you guys know. The other thing I was going to say too is once we get the list of applicants and we get a little bit closer, you'll be getting more detailed information about the timeline for that day and what you should expect. We'll send that out to everybody. And by then we'll know if it's going to be handwritten or someone needs a computer.
And the tests are multiple choice, I believe, correct? Yes. So the informational meeting is tonight. March 5th is when the application is due. And Mr. Green's going to walk you through the website. But real quick, Mr. Green, can you put up the next date before you do that, I believe, is the testing date. So March 10th is a Wednesday, and that's the admissions exam. And that's going to be from, I believe we said 3:30. Good, I was going to say 3 o'clock. So 3:30 to 7. So it will be at the school at CHS. And we will be there directing students where to go. They will sit down, they will take it in person March 10th at the school. And then they will be able to be picked up at 7 when it's done. There will be a makeup exam if for some reason you're sick or have a problem with March 10th, but really they're only by appointment March 12th for that makeup exam. And if at all possible, we'd like you to try and get to that March 10th admissions testing for proctoring reasons. And then March 31st is when we will email out notifications of acceptance to the program. And now I think Mr. Green is going to show us the website.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to take you on a tour of the website. And if you haven't been to our website, please take a moment to navigate to this. You can find it by Googling Camas High School Magnet Program, and it'll pull this right up. But peruse through some of the recent posts. You can get a sense of the life that students have in the Magnet Program. We just recently had several of our students shine at the local SEF event, the Science and Engineering Fair held here in the Southwest Washington region, and perform very well there. And then notifications about other opportunities that abound for students once they get into high school, like for instance, the collaboration we've been doing with the BeaverWorks Institute at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And they're looking for some students for a free program, the 9th and 10th graders here. But anyway, please take a moment and peruse some of those posts. But this is probably where the students are going to want to hang out on the admissions tab. And they can start their journey for applying to the program by clicking on the admissions frequently asked questions. And on this page, it tells you everything that you need to know about applying. And one of the first steps that students need to do, and these are starting to trickle in, and they should hopefully really trickle in at a very steady rate after tonight's meeting if you're thinking about applying, is you need to request recommendations from your teachers. And this is an online portal. So what happens is the students fill out their name, their email, so they're going to get a copy of the email that's sent to their teachers or the recommenders they request to have this form sent to. And then it automatically generates an email that's sent out to these people with the directions about how to apply and give the recommendation. So that is one of the first steps for students to do as they get ready to apply in the program. The online application is in this link right here, and I really strongly recommend that students take a second to preview this application and maybe cut and paste the questions from the application into a Drive document or a Word document and really take the time to wordsmith these and be thoughtful about your application. This isn't a huge part of your admission, but it is a significant part. And just doing your best quality work is obviously of interest to you. Now, these aren't due for another couple of weeks or 10 days or so. So you really have some time to prepare this and obviously do your best possible work. And then the final step is, of course, to take the admissions test. And that is coming up on March 10th, I believe. So that is the portal. Any questions about that have popped up since we have people out there that are monitoring this?
I don't know that I've seen questions about that application come in yet. There was one question. It says, please speak to the difference in engineering opportunities between MST and I think CET is CamTech. And so I think I know a little bit about CamTech. I can tell you a lot about MST, and what I think I know about CamTech is that CamTech is a CTE, or it's a career and technical education pathway that students can choose classes that follow their interest level, but they have specific classes like web design or manufacturing or whatever the woodworking classes like. There's computer science, there's robotics, and there's the very specific classes that are in that pathway that students can take based on their interest. And In CTE classes, there's always a career component. So they're trying to give them real technical skills to match a career that's out in the workplace, along with, of course, content, what we would say, academic skills for the classroom itself. But the MST program is not so much a pathway of classes. It's still an academic pathway through the school where you're taking all of your regular classes that you would take, but with a main focus on research, and not to one specific industry or career, but the research process. And that can be an engineering iterative design projects, or they can be really lab experimental, independent variable, dependent variable, what we call a controlled experimental process, depending on the student's interest. But we aren't into one specific career path. It is an overarching research project. And then what we do is we ensure our students their summer before their senior year get an internship in, again, a field that they're interested in, but it's a research component. It's usually minimum of 90 hours, has to have a research question with it, and data that they collect, whether it's a controlled experiment or an engineering design or just research where they're collecting information from other people. But that research component is huge for that internship. In the CTE program, students can get internships as well, but they're not necessarily as closely watched or managed by a specific staff member as the MST program. Mr. Green, do you have anything else to say about that?
Nope, you covered it beautifully. Thank you. A few more things about the website that might be of interest to you. We do have a Magnet College map. If you wanted to check that link out, it shows you some of the places where our student graduates have gone on to study. It's kind of fun now. I've been with the program since it started back in 2007, and many of these students are in their careers and or wrapping up grad student work now at various institutions across the United States and the world. And it's just kind of fun to see who is doing what and where they've been. If you click on these links, it pulls up for instance, the United States Air Force Academy, and you can see some of our students that have gone into the Academy via our program. But anyway, that's a fun tab to explore if you get a chance. There are also links that might give you kind of some insight into the competitions historically that we've been a part of, and some of the things we like to do as outlets for the students to learn about presenting their work and showcasing that. There's all sorts of stuff about the internship process that Mrs. Abraham was speaking to, including, if you want to see some of the partners that we've worked with, some of the different institutions and higher ed institutions that we've worked with over the years, but you can see them represented up here by their icons, and of course the proud class of 2020. All right, moving along, one of the other things that I will highlight before we wrap things up here is that on the overview slide, or tab rather, there is a promo video that might be of interest to the students in particular, because it's an interview of about 8 or 9 minutes with 3 to 6 magnet students from a couple of years ago, answering questions like, what about the magnet program was intriguing to you? What did you learn or benefit from the magnet program? These are seniors talking about this, and juniors in many cases. And just answering a lot of those questions that might represent you being on the fence. In fact, that is actually one of the questions. If you're unsure about whether you should apply or not, what should you do? And we have a couple of different responses to that question that are really instructive. But anyway, there is a lovely video with a soundtrack, and you get a chance to hear from the students and hopefully get some insight from them about the questions that most students typically have as they get ready to embark on this journey in the magnet program. So anyway, that is a little bit for you about our website. And please take a moment to explore this when you can. And of course, students, make sure that you start your journey here on the admissions FAQ document. All right, so Mrs. Abraham, I believe one last bullet point we haven't really covered is the one about forecasting. Can you speak to that?
Sure. When you forecast at your respective middle schools, if you're in the Camas School District, Skyridge, Liberty, or Odyssey, you will go ahead and forecast as if you are a non-MST ninth grader. Go ahead and forecast whatever regular classes you would want to take as a ninth grader. And then once we get our cohort established, Mrs. Levy will go in and adjust the schedule for you. So we make sure we get all of our ninth grade students in the classes where they should be, but you don't want to forecast for that way. And I think that's it on the slideshow. So if there are any final questions that haven't been answered that you would like to go ahead and type in, we can answer them, but we will have this recording set up on our MST website. Mr. Green will load that up as soon as it's, whatever it's called, calibrated, done, whatever it does, rendered. And you'll be able to go back and check this if you can send it to someone if they weren't able to make it.
So I think what we're going to do is stick around and give you a few minutes if you have questions to type those into the chat. But if there are no questions rolling in, we'll go ahead and close the meeting and post the video for you to follow up on a little bit later. And of course, if you have a question, feel free to email Mrs. Abraham or myself or Mr. Morris or Mrs. Levy or any of the teachers and staff, and we'll try to help you get the answers to your question.
We appreciate you guys coming and seeing what our program's all about. If you don't have any questions, you are free to sign off, but we will stick around and see what we can answer for you. There's a question, Mr. Green, and I think you're probably best to answer this. How much weight is given to the different components, the recommendations, the application itself, the test?
You know, we just revised that this year, and I'm trying to remember what the breakdown was. But I think the exam is 40%. I think the recommendations are 30. I think the on-demand writing is about 20. And then I believe the application itself is about 10%, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound correct?
It sounds close. I can't remember numbers. I don't know if Mr. Bohack keeps them in his head better as a math teacher, but.
That sounds about right to me.
I'm pretty sure that added up to 100 too, so.
That I can confirm.
So someone's asking about tours of the various high schools, and you're new to the district. I do know that there should be an informational night for discovery, like we are having this informational night for the MST program at CHS. I know that there's a Odyssey informational night coming up because I have a fifth grader who's interested in going there, and so I marked that down on my calendar. I haven't seen anything about a discovery informational night come out, but I would imagine there's something like that. As for Hayes Freedom, that is an application high school as well. You have to apply for it. And I do know they are very open to answering questions and having you come and take a tour about Hayes Freedom if you're interested in that high school as well. So, but I do think that's on, the onus is on the student to express that interest and go and schedule a tour there. And someone's asking about seventh grade teacher recommendations. If you feel your seventh grade teacher knows you better because the eighth grade teacher has only seen you through a computer screen, or you're changing eighth grade teachers halfway through the year, feel free to ask your seventh grade teachers for recommendations. We are okay with that this year. Our cohorts are about 30 to 32 students in the freshman year.
adding on to Mrs. Levy's answer about the grades being a part of the application process, they're not a formal part of the process. That's one of the changes we made this year as the middle schools in Camas have moved to standards-based grading. It's very difficult to transfer that into a GPA-based world. But we do look back at performance prior to getting into high school so that we can see if somebody is ready for the challenge of some rigorous academic work.
I see a question about business major classes. Mrs. Levy's typing, but business classes are not a part of the MST cohorted classes. Students are always welcome to take them as part of their electives in their sophomore, junior, senior year. We do have a number of MST students that are highly involved in DECA and do very well. Our program actually, I think, does a great job of preparing students for presenting and doing well in those kinds of competitions. So we have students that are very business minded that are also a part of the MST program. And they are given a prompt for the essay, for the writing exam part. They will have a question that they have to answer. So there's a question about applying for MST, but then choosing a different school. Absolutely. If we say you're accepted, but you choose to go a different way, then we wish you the best. Son started in 8th grade in Camas. If you have 7th grade teachers from a different district that you feel know your son better than his 8th grade teachers in Camas, it's whatever teachers he's had who knows him and can speak to the questions on the recommendations. So they do not have to be Camas district teachers for those recommendations. I actually don't know if there's a size limit for the essay, so I see Mrs. Levy is answering, so I'm going to let her answer that one. Mr. Green, are there examples of essay topics for students?
We don't typically like to publish those, but I can tell you that we're looking to see how a student responds to a complex problem in a creative way. And we have a series of different prompts that we rotate through. So I think they're really fun prompts. So just be prepared to be creative in your responses and show your good writing and organization and thorough answering of the question. And, you know, there's only so much time for the writing portion. So that's really the biggest limiting factor. But most students write about a page or so, handwritten on a legal pad.
And it is going to be at CHS. We will be following, so students will be asked to wear masks from the time they enter the building to the time they leave. We will be following all COVID guidelines of 6 feet physical distancing and make sure that they are spread out and we are not overloading any one classroom. So we will be looking at how many completed applications we get, how many students will be there for that admissions, and we'll be planning that all out so we keep all of our staff and students safe at that time. So there are 3 recommendations required from a math, a science, and an English teacher. That 4th recommendation that's allowed but not required can be from any other adult who knows your student well and can speak to their character and ability. So we've had, you know, Knowledge Bowl or Science Olympiad coaches from academic programs they've been involved in. We've had athletic coaches. We've had people from church. We've had people they've babysat for, you know, and any other adult that's not related to them for that 4th recommendation is allowed. So the question again about typing the essay or writing it on paper. In the past, it's always been handwritten. This year, we have thrown around the idea of having it be computer typed, but we haven't decided that. I think it will, you know, we'll make that decision and then let you know when we send out the information about the testing date and expectations. You will know at that time. So I'm going to say about 5 more minutes, Mr. Green, if there's other questions that come in. So if you haven't gotten an answered yet, now's the time to get them in. The trickle has slowed. Will science be tested? No, the tests, the admissions exam are focused on a math, logical reasoning test, a reading comprehension, and then the writing prompt. So there will be no science content on an admissions exam. Mr. Green monitors the application, so I'll let him answer. How many applicants so far was the question?
We usually get a deluge of finished applications right around the time of the deadline, which is March 5th. At this present time, there's just a few applications that have been submitted. As I mentioned earlier, there is no rush. Take the time. There's no benefit to being the first, the second, the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. We take all of the data and put it into our database after the deadline has been here and passed. And so please take your time. We typically range from anywhere between like 75 to 100 applicants. We have opened things up pretty significantly and removed some of the prerequisites that we used to have back in the day. And so we're hoping for more applications, but we're also competing with some of the other programs in the district, which we're happy to also endorse and speak highly of. There's lots of great opportunities for you to get a great education in the Camas School District, and this is just one of the many opportunities out there.
So it looks like Abe's going to answer this as well, but it might be a good question for several of us to answer. The question is, what do you feel are the main reasons a student might want to join the Magnet program? I would assume, not the problem. What are the short and long-term positives? What are negatives that we should consider who might be a good fit? And it's really all about good fit. For me, I would say some of the strengths of the Magnet program is it creates a smaller community within our big 2,000 plus high school. It allows students to create relationships with each other and with this team of teachers that you see. I really think that's one of our strengths. I think another strength is for students that are interested in math, science, and technology, it's a place to nerd out and to be around other people who enjoy nerding out and learning and being curious, and in an atmosphere where that's encouraged and fostered. And I think the last kind of thought I would say is a lot of students that are in the program are wicked smart, but maybe the social and the interpersonal skills are maybe not the strength. And I think our program does a good job of trying to have everybody grow in areas where they need growth, us included as teachers. So those are some of my thoughts. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think you nailed it, Mr. Bohack.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if anyone else was going to do it. My video. Oh, there we go. But I was thinking that, might want to join the Magnet program. Again, if they're really focused on a science, engineering, math career, they feel those are where they excel and they enjoy those kinds of problem solving, creative thinking in those realms. It's a great fit. The short and long-term positives, the short term, it's a real family focused feel. It's a smaller school within a school, so they don't tend to get lost at the high school. But the long term, in the short term, I think is the training that our students gain from having to present their work and working in groups and having to learn interpersonal skills and collaboration, creativity, communication, the technology piece when they go to college or a career right out of high school. They are well versed in those skills that employers are going to be looking for that will help them succeed. The negatives, if they really want to maybe experience high school in a different way, really focused more on drama and art and music or the business, or want to focus in on a specific technology like the CamTech program would allow. You know, again, this is high school. This is not college. They're not picking the career they're going to have for the rest of their lives. But, you know, there are a lot of opportunities at Camas High School to explore what they're interested in. This is just one of them.
Yeah, Abe, I'm sorry I didn't answer all your questions, Amy. The negatives, I didn't speak to that. Similar to what Abe said, and it's all about fit. If the program's not a fit, I wouldn't advise it. If it's something that a student's not interested in, I would not push them into it. It is a challenging workload. Students do need to work well with others. And so balance is super important. Really, when you're making any like forecasting decision for classes, including magnet program, consider balance in your life. It is so important. Yeah, so that could be a negative as far as who it might not be a good fit for.
Adding on to that, one of the negatives that we've been able to tackle head on and continually address as it's like a persistent issue is sometimes the kids being together, they raise each other to new heights, but because they are so competitive and so skilled, many of them, they sometimes do the comparison thing that can ultimately be really negative. And so we have close relationships with the students. We have an evaluation process we do in normal years twice a semester, where students will tell us what's going on and how they're feeling, and also speak up about you know, feeling really negative about certain things. And so we can address that head on. And that's only because of the community that we have. But that's one of the things that I thought about, Amy, when you mentioned that part about the negative stuff. But yeah, we're not a perfect program, but you know, we work well for a lot of students. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I will say too, will students have to worry about being too stressed with the workload? Kind of segues into that question really well. Students are coming from 8th grade to 9th grade. Right away, there's going to be a jump. It's a transition, it's a change, it's a new school with high school expectations. So there's always going to be, for most students, a little bit of a challenge there. And we have heard from our 9th graders that it's something they are not necessarily understanding of the level of change coming into high school and into the MST Magnet program. But do they have to worry about being too stressed? It really depends on the person. I will tell you, the support system in the Magnet program is amazing. Like I said, we get together weekly, bi-weekly basis to talk, or bi-monthly, I can never get those right, a basis to talk about how our students are doing with the self-evaluations that they put in and what we hear them saying in class. We're concerned about the whole student. We are not concerned about their grades in our classes. So they have a support system with the entire staff and Mrs. Levy, the counselor, to help them. And we try to come along and really partner with you, the parent, in the home front to make it a holistic approach to educating your child wholly. And you know what they have already established, their work ethic, their time management skills, which we encourage and do a lot of work in their freshman year in principles of technology as well, it will depend on their level of stress and how they can handle it. One more thing I'd like to just say on that topic is, you know, to lean into the discomfort a little bit to grow from it is really, I've seen in our students, a valuable experience, knowing though the limit and that threshold that doesn't break them, but bends them enough to grow them stronger. And I hope I'm speaking appropriately here for that, but that would be my take on it, if anyone else wants to join in.
I'll just underscore again this video, the promo video, the students talking about the answers to the questions, many of which are being asked right now and answered by us. The students are much more eloquent and authentic in what they have to say in their answers here. Not that we haven't tried, but I really think you should check out this video.
And Mr. Green, you know the time given for the on-demand writing part of the test is, we were talking about 45 minutes to 60 minutes?
I think it is about 45 minutes to an hour, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, if it's 70 questions on the reading and math area, I'm thinking about, 70 to 90 minutes for those two portions, and then 45 to an hour for that writing portion. The time is the 3:30 to 7. We have a few small short breaks in there, of course, in between tests, but I think that kind of breaks it up into that hour and a half, hour or something like that.
Someone asked a question about applying for colleges and does the Magnet program give an edge? I don't know about that. I'm not going to speak to that, but what I can speak to is we really encourage students to follow their passions. Camas High School actually has an astronaut who graduated from high school in like the late 70s or early 80s. And he has spoken to our school multiple times. And that's something that he emphasizes. And as a program, I think we try to really emphasize that is follow your passion and see where that leads. And what I would say about students going from the Magnet program to college, we regularly hear our Magnet program students come back and say that they were so well prepared for the college experience coming from this program. So I can speak to that aspect.
And Mr. Green, if I may, and Mrs. Abraham, if I may address the transition into high school, oftentimes that first semester of freshman year is one of the most challenging times for students. That transition, the expectations for high school level courses is very different than middle school expectations. We have 6 periods of classes to balance, and oftentimes students are used to completing all of their homework during class time when they were in middle school. But in high school, there is so much content to impart upon students that there often is not much time, if any, to complete homework during class time. So it does end up being an end of the evening time or afternoon time. But I do think the other aspect that catches freshmen off guard is in high school, you really need a solid organizational and time management system in place. And we know that we're not naturally born with those, they're learned skills. We do work with students in helping them identify different methods of time management and organization, but we do stress it doesn't matter what system you use, whether you use a calendar, whether you use your technology, just use it consistently, block out time to take care of homework so that things don't get out of hand and you get behind on work. I think that's where the greatest stress that students feel is that the lack of organization and lack of time management.
Very well said, Mrs. Levy. So it's 7:24 now. We're gonna definitely sign off at 7:30, but if you think most of your questions have been answered and you're gonna go on and apply, or it's not for you, we appreciate you coming and joining us tonight. And again, we will have this recording posted on the MST blog as soon as it's ready to be done. So. There's a question about studying before the test. What I would say is there really isn't any studying to be done. It's not a test per se of your content knowledge, but your creative thinking, logical reasoning skills. So there is no studying method that I could recommend or tell you would work for you. If there's someone else that has an answer.
My recommendation is that students eat a really good breakfast and lunch, stay hydrated, that they sleep well the night before. That's the best test prep.
And that's good for all tests, I would say. I have students in my classes that say they stayed up till 4 studying, and I tell them that's not what I want. You need your sleep. So there's another question about the math test, and I have not proctored the math test and I don't know. So what I can just say is reiterate what Mr. Morris said about it is that, you know, it's a math test, but more looking at logical thinking, critical thinking skills with the numbers and not so heavy on algebra or geometry or any specific math.
If you'd like to follow up by emailing Mr. Morris, I'm sure he could expand on that, but I think he was pretty clear about it and the type of questions that they would have on that math portion.
So I see a question keep coming up. I'm wondering if maybe when we answer it typed, it's not working. But yes, if the question's been asked about if a student can write in cursive. If the writing is legible, you can handwrite it however you prefer.
And I would reiterate what Mrs. Abraham said, legibility is essential because we will be reading them and evaluating them.
Shall we wrap things up? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming out tonight and learning about the program. We're available for follow-up email questions and answers as they come up, and then we'll have this presentation posted on our blog in the near future. If you haven't subscribed to our blog, you can do so and get an email notification about any posts, or you can like and follow us on Twitter or Facebook to get those notifications as well. And I think that's about it. Thank you again for taking the time to come out tonight and learn about the program.
Good night, everyone. Thanks
Good night,
for joining us.
everyone.
Good night.